few days ago now, Fallout 76's public test server was updated with patch 22. This is shaping up to be one of, if not the largest patch to come to Fallout 76 in a long time. The only bigger one really being Wastelanders. I made a full video covering some of the stuff you could find live right now, some of the new features, a comprehensive balance overhaul, which is really just a big nerf to nearly every method of doing damage in the game, and I highly recommend you check out that original video if you haven't already. I'll have it linked in the eye and in the description, but you could view this as almost a part 2, as what we're looking at with this one is actually some of the data mines that we could find in the files of the game, and this is very, very revealing, giving us a lot of insight as to what's coming with the next season for Fallout 76, some of the new Atomic Shop items, but also what's coming with the big new Brotherhood of Steel DLC, and in particular Steel Dawn, which is the first of the almost 2-part Brotherhood DLC. There's a lot to unpack and uncover, and of course there's going to be spoilers in this video. Honestly, not super big spoilers. It's not revealing what the Brotherhood's overall purpose will be or what happens in Fractured Steel, but I'm going to give you an overview of Steel Dawn, just a brief description as to what you'll actually be doing in Steel Dawn. But again, I'll give you an in-video warning as to when those spoilers come up, as we do have some other stuff to go over first. This video was painstaking to make. A ton of my resources were from the Data Miners Discord that I'll have linked down below, but also just going through line by line the dialogue added to the game, which took hours upon hours. That's why this video is so late. So if you do want to give it a like, if you do want to subscribe for more Fallout 76 content on this video in particular, it'd be appreciated. But first and foremost, let's take a look at some of the new seasons content on its way to Fallout 76. In the public test server right now, you can see the new seasons game board, and you can actually see many of the rewards coming with that, although you can't claim them just yet, so they're just kind of visually there and you can level up, but you can't actually use the new rewards. It's honestly much of the same. A big theme we could see this time around is the armor ace skins. These are going to be applying to a variety of weapons in game, but in particular a bunch of armors in Fallout 76. Basically each of the power armors will now have this new armor ace skin. And on the flip side, there's a variety of Red Viper skins that you can apply to the armors of Fallout 76, which is basically just the half and half of the two different themes of this game board. But towards the end of the game board, there are far more custom and interesting armor skins. There's going to be a new armor ace themed power armor style, which is just a totally different looking power armor. It's actually very similar looking to other power armors, but I really love this one. I think it looks pretty cool. It doesn't look like this is a new power armor though, it's a new power armor skin, which Bethesda has really likened over the past year with Fallout 76. In a similar vein, the Subjugator outfit, which you can apply over your regular armor in Fallout 76, and this actually looks really cool. Some of the other unique things we could find via this, a Brotherhood of Steel field station, which is pretty cool in that it's actually a throwback to Fallout 2, as this literally appeared in Fallout 2. Right now it actually looks very similar to the just released Communist Bunker that just went live in Fallout 76 this week. There are new minigames you could place at your camp, which initially I got really excited for, foosball and a water shooter. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like these are actually functional. You can go on them and it will play an animation, but it's just you sitting on a machine playing an animation. You don't actually really get to play the game against others, or at least based off what we know thus far, it doesn't seem like you could play against others. A new train set we could find. Also, there's going to be a beer stein for completing this, something Bethesda has been doing more and more with all these limited time events, which is pretty cool. But then also, there's a variety of things that are kind of in the score system, but not quite on the game board, so they might be in score, they might be just Atomic Shop items. It seems like how Bethesda is working internally right now, there's a ton of stuff created for the score system and labeled as such in the files, but then it just doesn't make the cut, or they decide, nah, we'll just sell this instead, so it ends up going on the Atomic Shop. And it seems like there's actually going to be a ton in the way of camp items, so that is something I know a lot of you will get excited for. In-camp planters are found, as well as a full-on greenhouse, so you could actually grow crops inside or in your camp in a better way, not just having to rely on finding soil throughout Fallout 76. A power armor display station, so you could just put your power armor on display, not just a crafting table. More ATX focused, there's actually mannequins as well as power armor mannequins, which are pretty cool, as well as some themed weapon displays. So not only can you showcase power armors and armors, but cooler or more unique ways to actually show off some of your favorite weapons, which all of that is pretty cool. I imagine a lot of the camp builders out there will actually really appreciate some of these new new additions. They are adding additional functionality. Outside of that, there's a few other miscellaneous things, a locker hidden door, which is cool. Hidden doors tend to be pretty popular, but otherwise none of the other cosmetics were more than just new cosmetics that at times looked cool, at other times were kind of meh. A few new emotes are coming, Mind Blown, as well as the I'm watching you emote, but again, it's not clear if this will be a part of maybe season 3 or just an Atomic Shop edition in the future. One of the big questions we have as season 1 comes to an end is what happens to some of those things available via season 1. And we actually got an answer for this, as with some of these subsequent updates, Bethesda is making new additions to the gold bullion system in Fallout 76. We could actually find this live right now in the public test server. You can see new things like lunchboxes available for purchase for gold bullions, which previously you could only get via season 1, and they will be making a return in season 2. Other things like the Vault 94 Scout Mask is a bullion item, glaive mods for the newly added Brotherhood of Steel themed glaive through daily ops on the public test server you could get via the bullion system, and also the ammo converter and chicken coop, which were 2 season 1 rewards that were only available via the season. So it seems like once season 1 comes to an end, you'll be able to purchase these via gold bullion instead as a more legacy way of accessing them. And in particular with that ammo converter, that is really expensive. It definitely will take a lot longer to get 1250 gold bullion versus reaching level 5 in the current season. So if you haven't done that, you should do that, as it is something handy to have at your camp. Not really that handy to be honest, but it's good to not miss out on that one. But then looking at some future updates and this Brotherhood DLC overall and some of the data mines or leaks we have around this, I wouldn't say any of this is particularly spoilery, and it's important to remember when it comes to this content, it is very subject to change. Of course, everything being data mined or leaked via this method is subject to change, but in particular when you're looking at future content or work in progress quests, they might just end up cutting them because they don't like the direction they're going. Although now, as we've had a year and a half, almost 2 years to look at some of this stuff, it definitely tends to hold pretty true. First, a few things around daily ops. There's a really awesome Spec Ops outfit as a part of this that I just wanted to highlight. Also, those unique survival weapons are coming back via daily ops, or seemingly will be. If you remember back when survival mode was a part of Fallout 76, there were limited time weapons you could get just by playing in that mode. These were legendaries that were named and had a specific set of legendary effects on them, and you will be able to once again get them via the daily ops system. A few future daily ops locations we could see in the files: the Wendigo Cave, Morgantown High School, West Tech. Also, it looks like the Watoga Civic Center may make a return here, which will be really cool, especially if it's in that arena, which would be a great fit for a daily op. When it comes to Steel Dawn and the next Brotherhood of Steel DLC overall, it looks like it actually is coming in patch 23. There's a lot of back and forth in this because in recent interviews, Bethesda described how it would be coming in the next patch, but we never kind of got official confirmation or verbal confirmation that they were in fact referring to patch 22 there. They just said next patch, but maybe they just meant a future one. And the data mines right now definitely make it seem like this will either be a segmented release, which is probably true either way, or even further, that the Brotherhood of Steel will make their debut in Appalachia starting with patch 23, not patch 22. Patch 22 being the next one coming at some point in September. The reason I mention this is there's actually going to be a note left by Russell Dorsey, and this will likely go live in patch 22, where it more or less says he is gone again after this limited time Fortifying Atlas event does end, but how the Brotherhood of Steel are almost here, and the in-game location will be updated, likely how we saw in that recent summer DLC trailer. When you couple that with the fact that right now in the PTS, several of these Steel Dawn themed quests are just not complete, it definitely makes it seem like Steel Dawn is not coming in just a month from now. It likely is in the next couple of patches. As far as Steel Dawn overall, just a brief overview without getting into spoilers, it looks like it'll have 4 or 5 major new Brotherhood themed NPCs for us to have and experience, one of those being a potential companion, and based on the files right now, 3 or 4 quests to do with it. Some of those Brotherhood themed, but some others not so Brotherhood themed. Although I do think this is either going to be a rolling update or it just isn't complete in the public test server right now, because some of these quests are clearly not done or only have parts done, like only the locations implemented or only the dialogues implemented. So I wouldn't be shocked is what happens here. Maybe we get some of this content in patch 23, but then we'll get some more in patch 24 and patch 25. In some recent interviews, Bethesda has described wanting to go back towards that segmented approach, pretty similar to what we saw last year, and it kind of keeps you entertained or playing. Every couple of weeks, or maybe this time every month, we'll get a little bit more to play with, unlike Wastelanders where it was just one big update. But otherwise, we will be able to join the Brotherhood of Steel. We'll have a couple of quests we can do for them. It looks like there may be avenues to also not join the Brotherhood of Steel, at least initially, and you could side with the Raiders or Settlers against the Brotherhood of Steel, but that that part in particular is still very early on. It's not clear how fleshed out it is, and also it's not solely Brotherhood of Steel content. There's some other tertiary content that is kind of related somewhat, but also unrelated, just other things going on in the world coming with the Brotherhood's new arrival. But with that, here's where we get into the more spoilery part of this video. I'm going to go more in depth as to what exactly the Brotherhood are doing, some of the characters we will see, and some of the quests they will bring to the table. Although I wouldn't describe any of these as massive spoilers. There's no big twists I'm spoiling here. So if you're kind of just loosely interested in what's coming next to Fallout 76, I think you're mostly fine in hearing about it via this. So it's Steel Dawn, the Brotherhood returns to Appalachia. And it seems like the initial Brotherhood of Steel force coming to Appalachia is relatively small. Based off some of the information we have from datamines, it looks like around 5 members actually left California, or so, 5 named members, then maybe some unnamed miscellaneous members. It doesn't really seem like they were intending to make a new chapter of the Brotherhood of Steel in Appalachia, but rather it was a scouting party, hence it being so small. But along the way, what ended up happening was actually they got ambushed by raiders. This ended up messing with their communication equipment, but also it took down one of the Brotherhood soldiers. It seems like at one point some of them may have even been captured. So a couple of the people that were initially on their way to Appalachia, as well as a variety of other places, which we'll get into, ended up returning to Lost Hills, going back to California at some point. As far as the leader of this with Paladin Romani, she's a former National Guard and described as largely a bold leader who really cares about her people and really cares about people overall. Her leadership could be criticized as being reckless, but it was definitely effective, and she requested to actually lead this first expeditionary force. Although there's almost a little bit of a rumbling that perhaps she was actually granted this position so the Council of Elders could get rid of her. It doesn't really dive too deeply into some of those conflicts just yet. Perhaps that content just isn't on the public test server, but there certainly are at least the frameworks for there being some kind of tension between Romani and the larger Brotherhood of Steel command back in California. So though they were ambushed by raiders and at least one member ended up perishing, they also recruited new members to the Brotherhood of Steel as they were crossing the country. And several of the people you can talk to in Appalachia with this DLC will actually be some of those new members. It seems like they actually did walk across the country and they actually described no vertibirds, but they do mention vertibirds, saying maybe we'll get to fly again at some point. The key members we have here are going to be Paladin Romani as the core one. Knight Shin is one of the big secondary members, and he's actually from the Mojave, so there could be interesting dialogue from him in the future around the Mojave during this time period. Scribe Valdez is actually in the Brotherhood of Steel since he was a child. He liked flying things, and specifically that's where you get the vertibird line. Knight Connor's the one to die along the way. Knight Thornberry is the one who went back to California with wounded members. Russell Dorsey continues to be a member of the Brotherhood of Steel and actually plays somewhat of a role in some of the intro quests. And overall with this update, it looks like there'll be about 32 new NPCs in total, but many are miscellaneous or unnamed. They'll just have passive dialogue with only a few or a handful of named and really substantial Brotherhood members making an appearance. But we do learn that the Brotherhood of Steel were actually surprised by what they found in Appalachia. They expected far more desolation, and really the last info they have about Appalachia is some of those final transmissions from Paladin Taggerty way back when. Based on the dialogue right now, it doesn't seem like they are not talking to Lost Hills, not talking to Brotherhood Command. They just can't because they literally don't have a communicator. It was destroyed by those raiders. They talk about the Scorched Plague and how there's rumors of a cure in the region. They're also aware of the raiders, settlers, and vault dwellers inhabiting Appalachia now. There's actually several dialogue choices that do reflect you being a vault dweller, that do reflect some of the choices you made during the Wastelanders questline if you beat it. But ultimately, their goal here is knowledge. They were tasked with hitting several locations across the US, and the final location was Atlas Observatory. So they were going to certain hotspots or areas where they thought they could find unique pieces of technology from before the war, or gain insight or knowledge from that technology. But it seems like based on the dialogue, they didn't really find much during their journey, and Atlas Observatory is kind of their last hope for something significant, but also it ended up being their last destination as far as their trek. But they do know at Atlas Observatory, they were building something significant. The old regime had something going on here. We know from the lore already it's a weather machine, and there actually is a quest involving this, but we'll talk more about that a little bit later. It seems like right now in the game, there still isn't a way for this Brotherhood of Steel to actually reach Lost Hills, so the first expeditionary force has still not communicated with Maxon and the larger Brotherhood command, and one of their tasks is actually to report the fate of the Appalachian Brotherhood of Steel, as technically communication fell out before the Appalachian Brotherhood of Steel was wiped out completely. So the Brotherhood command in California knew things were going bad badly, but they don't know exactly what happened, although I'm sure they could kind of figure it out because they stopped hearing from them. Romani from this DLC is an interesting character because she is the leader of this Brotherhood force, but also you could definitely see, even just from some of the dialogue, she doesn't wholly agree with the overall mantra of the original Brotherhood of Steel in California. She's completely devoted to the Brotherhood of Steel. She describes how her life before it is irrelevant and the future of humanity is the Brotherhood of Steel. It's the only future that is possible, but also how the California Brotherhood of Steel are not super good at thinking on her feet. And from dialogue, it really seems like Paladin Romani focuses on helping people. She believes in the Brotherhood's preservation of technology mission, but definitely has an emphasis in helping people and really wants to help Appalachia while she's here. All the Brotherhood members you can encounter will have different dialogue depending on your rank. There's going to be no rank, or you will become an initiate at some point with the Brotherhood of Steel, and that will be reflected. They actually will comment on you having mutations, as the Brotherhood doesn't really like mutants, so there are entries for kind of passive cold comments they'll make towards you if you are a mutated player, which I'm sure is nearly everyone. Only a handful of NPCs have full-on interactions, only 3-4, but there are a bunch of miscellaneous ones that'll probably just inhabit Fort Atlas, which they rename Atlas Observatory to Fort Atlas, and just be walking around and make comments. There's going to be some hopefuls trying to join, as well as some Brotherhood patrols around Appalachia. Some initiates they picked up along the way that aren't larger characters, but are kind of just there in the background. One notable Brotherhood of Steel character is the Brotherhood of Steel medic with Solomon Hardy. He's relevant because it looks like Solomon Hardy is going to end up being a companion or an ally we could have at our camp. As of right now, it doesn't seem like he's going to have his own quest or anything like that, but he is a medic and he can heal you. He was picked up by the Brotherhood of Steel during their journey, and there's a ton of dialogue you could have about the Brotherhood, and also his perspective on the Brotherhood is almost an outsider. He never saw a Brotherhood command in California. He just knows this little group of Brotherhood soldiers who are making this trek across the US and ended up in Appalachia. Hopefully this ends up getting changed, but at least right now, he can either cure your diseases, your rads, or heal your HP, but it'll cost 5,000 caps, which is insane. If that's like a one-time payment, that's fine, but overall, that is way too much money, so hopefully it gets reduced to like 100. And also, he's originally from the DC area, so there could be future interesting dialogue around that particular aspect. But even here, he voices some concerns around the Brotherhood of Steel overall, especially those in California. As he describes, he sees them more so hoarding technology than helping people. And I found that pretty interesting because with almost all of these named Brotherhood members, you can get them to kind of talk badly about the Brotherhood somewhat, or at least discuss how maybe they think they could be doing something better. And considering we know the next big DLC is Fractured Steel, this will likely come into play somehow. Some of these concerns may end up being much larger concerns with whatever we have to do next, or whatever the next big requirement for this Appalachian Brotherhood of Steel is from Command in California. Looking at some of the quests we could find in the files, starting with Brotherhood themed quests. One of the big ones is the Mother of Invention quest. This seems to be one of the most complete. You're going to do this with Scribe Valdez, where more or less you are looking in the basement area of Atlas Observatory. It's a totally new interior location, and you're going to be going through this trying to get an understanding of what's going on at Atlas and collecting parts from Atlas to be analyzed. Via this, it seems like we are introducing the Brotherhood of Steel to Ultrasight, as this group of Brotherhood soldiers never saw it. The Appalachian Brotherhood of Steel are the ones who found it, and you're going to test certain aspects of this weather machine and try and get it working. The New Brothers quest is another one that seems fairly complete. Here, you're more or less going to talk to several people looking to join the Brotherhood of Steel or get something out of them, several hopefuls that are hanging out outside. They voice frustration with the process or the disorganization of the Brotherhood of Steel, but you interview them and then report back to some of the Brotherhood members to say what you found. The field testing quest seems to still be a work in progress, but more or less you're going to recruit somebody to this Brotherhood of Steel by going out and helping them take down some ghouls. This too will feature a new location with the Orwell bomb shelter, and it's actually this quest that seems to earn you the initiate rank with the Brotherhood of Steel, but likely you'll have to do some of those other quests first to actually get to access this one. There's going to be a miss quest where you could actually turn in electronics to an aspiring scribe at the Brotherhood of Steel, so kind of just a thing you could do from time to time to likely get caps or some kind of reward. You could also turn in technical data directly to this Brotherhood. You don't have to go to Defiance all the time. There's this interesting side quest with Brotherhood bandits where more or less there's going to be a group of bandits in Appalachia pretending to be the Brotherhood of Steel and requesting you give them some caps to help support the overall cause, but of course they aren't a part of that and you could actually end up fighting them. Then there's a few quests that aren't super related to the Brotherhood, or they're kind of related to the Brotherhood but taking place with other factions. The Brothers in Arms quest is actually actually going to take place at the now overhauled Treehouse Village. You can find this right now in the public test server. It has a totally new look as well as many new people at it. More or less, the Blood Eagles led by this guy named Dagger have been harassing the Treehouse Village residents. So you could fight off the Blood Eagles, you could actually give the weapons and supplies to villagers on behalf of the Brotherhood, seemingly if you joined them already, and there's going to be several new Blood Eagle locations in addition to the overhauled Treehouse Village. But what looks like it'll be a much larger part of this, you also do have two new places with the Crater War Room and the Foundation Supply Room. The Foundation Supply Room location's in game, but we don't know much about the quest, but it's likely there'll be a Raider and a Settler counterpart, so based on the Raider quest, which we do have way more information on, we can infer what we can expect to find at Foundation. More or less, at the Crater War Room, there's going to be this new Raider war party setup, and these are new NPCs that are focused on removing the Brotherhood from Appalachia. They're a part of the Raider faction, but they are wholeheartedly against the Brotherhood of Steel. They describe how the Brotherhood of Steel came in with this huge righteous cause to take all of their things, but then they'll also protect them, and how they don't really agree with that. And if you abide by the Brotherhood of Steel, they'll take all your things and eventually strike you down. They want to prevent the Brotherhood of Steel getting too much power in the region because they think they have bad intentions. And they describe how they hit the Brotherhood of Steel first to get an upper hand so they don't get too powerful too quickly. And it seems like there might be some new daily quests to actually do here, and it might be against the Brotherhood of Steel. This stuff certainly seems like a work in progress. It's not totally clear if you're going to really have an avenue to either join the Brotherhood or join the Raiders or join the Settlers. But if you hate the Brotherhood of Steel, although there will be new quests for them and you'll probably have to do those to unlock certain things, it definitely looks like at least somewhat there'll be some avenues to go against the Brotherhood or to just try and harm them. Overall with this DLC, as you could probably gauge from what I've told you thus far, it seems pretty surface level. Like, it's not going super in depth with the new Brotherhood of Steel that's probably coming next. So I wouldn't be shocked if it's kind of a loose, you could align with the Brotherhood, you could align with the Raiders or the Settlers, but you're not really committing yourself fully like you were in Wastelanders. There's a new makeshift vault location that was actually used by former Vault Tech employees, and they were angry they didn't get a spot in a real vault, so they made a fake one. The Big Bend Tunnel West is getting a new Blue Ridge caravan location, but it's not totally clear what it'll be used for, but it looks like that faction is expanding. It looks like there's going to be some changes around mole miners. There's this new location known as a mole miner network, but it's not clear what this is or how it'll tie in. There's also big changes to the mole miner treasure hunters and the pals you can get from them, as a wide variety of new items have been added with this. A Deathclaw Hunter outfit and hat, a Grafton Monster lamp, an animatronic clown, a Wanamingo plushie, a Strongman outfit, a bed of nails, a Grafton Monster mask, and a Strongman Super Sledge paint. No longer will they just award mounted heads or armor and weapon plans, but rather there's quite a bit new here. As well as by taking them down, you're going to get contextual ammo, script, cap, ore, and chems. And the old outfits, the unique outfits to the past Mole Miner Treasure Hunter event, are still going to be given from this. But also, these will be applied via new pals. So if you stored a bunch of old pals, they won't actually give you the new rewards. You'll have to redo the event to get new pals to actually get the new stuff. As far as a few other miscellaneous patches that are already live in the PTS, the reload speed glitch with the firework mine is patched, so it no longer reloads super quick. The Scorchbeast Queen limb damage bug is fixed, so you can cripple it yet again. Crater and Foundation are now free fast travel points. A PTS flag is found in the files, although it's not totally clear how it fits in. A 44 bull barrel will finally be on the way, as well as it seems like there's some new holotapes or content somewhat in Vault 94, but nothing huge. So overall with this, it still feels like there's a lot to look forward to in the future of Fallout 76. It definitely feels like, at least based off what we know thus far, Steel Dawn will be a smaller DLC, but I think we were expecting that. Even just based off the way it's referred to on the roadmap, it seemed like it wouldn't be Wastelanders sized, rather that would be Fractured Steel, or at least Fractured Steel would be closer to Wastelanders size. And I think having a smaller scale DLC, giving us a few quests, a couple of quest lines to complete, actually having the world change a bit, the Brotherhood of Steel make an appearance, but then perhaps some roaming Brotherhood members, a few new location overhauls, could be a lot of fun and could be very healthy for this game. Some of the lingering questions we still have is exactly how big this DLC is. Is everything in the PTS right now kind of a good overview, even though we have some things like the Foundation supply room clearly not being fleshed out? Perhaps once all of the things we know about now are fleshed out, that is everything? Or perhaps are there 2, 3, 4 more quests that are still yet to be added that will actually make this quite a bit more sizable? Either way, I'm pretty excited. It seems inevitable at this point. We are getting a delay on the Fractured Steel DLC, so this will likely be where we end off the year with Vault 76 over the next few months. And nothing I've heard thus far sounds bad. bad. I think if anything, I hope there's more of what I heard about. And perhaps it's more of a rolling approach where we get some of this now and the rest of it as we approach 2021 and some of those initial months of next year. And again, if you didn't see my last video looking at some of the changes currently live on the PTS, not just datamines, the daily ops feature is phenomenal. It is one of my favorite feature additions to Fallout 76 in a long time, so that alone I think will get a lot of people very excited. Either way, I hope you guys found this video informative. It took a really long time to make, but hopefully it did help you getting a better understanding of what comes next with this game. Until next time, I thank you all again for watching, and I hope to see you all later.